Lava water. Some intelligent people came up with the theory that there exists an infinite number of dimensions, and it would stand to reason that there exists a version of every person in each of those infinite dimensions. Perhaps they would look like you, perhaps not. Perhaps in one dimension, there is a squirrel that has the same little tapping foot movements that you do when you get excited. Millicent wondered if in one of those dimensions, the funeral director was a slug, or some other moist creature. Whatever the man used on his face, it did not mix well with sweat. He looked as if dipped in resin. The small jewels of perspiration at his hairline sparkled in the soft lighting of the room. She could see a growing wet spot in the middle of his shirt beneath his ugly tie. She stared, captivated by both his appearance and his level of concern. She felt sorry for him. There was no way to relieve him of his anxiety.
Again, Miss Ifa, you will get this correct very soon, I promise. Are you sure there's nothing we can get you?
His eyes would meet hers for only a millisecond at a time. They darted around the room searching for an anchor. His hands were meaty spiders, fidgety things at the end of ramrod straight arms. It's Ifa, and no, I'm fine. I'm sure this will sort out soon. She flashed the sweet smile. The sweet smile conveyed an air of complete kindness and honesty, a useful tool for work in a high-profile charity meant to disarm people. This time, she felt she needed it to save a man's life. The meaty spiders continued their dance. He held his place, not meeting her gaze, and silent, except for the unintelligible noises meant only for himself. Millicent waited, curious. The cartoonish look of relief on his moist face when the secretary called out to him from her desk was so painful, she could not muster a laugh. She did, though, bank it away for later. That woman just got a raise and she doesn't even know it, she thought as the sweaty director scurried away to the office. Fishing her phone from her pocket, she took note of the time. 3 hours? 3 hours in this tight room where none of the furniture matched. Of all the places in the world to waste a day, a funeral home's waiting room was not high on the list. Still, for her, no matter where it landed on the list, it was higher than being at work. She hadn't met an excuse too flimsy to get out of work. The one she had today was as solid as they come. She dialed, hoping for the voicemail. Hello? Magnar Holland, champion of the people, refused to separate business and personal. Every interaction was treated with a level of casualness that required conformity on her part. It was a common focus in quiet circles around the office. Not one live soul would be brave enough to tell him, though. Mr. Holland, it's me, Millicent.
Millicent, hello. What's happening? Are you here?
No, sir, I'm not there. I may be here a while. She paused, hoping he would end the conversation there. Not a chance. He waited. I'm at the funeral home. They can't find my mother's remains.
What?
For the first 3 years of her employment with the Holland Foundation, Millicent was an assistant's assistant. Even she could not recall the silly title they gave her. Her immediate boss, Annie Keeler, could have best been described as a singular and complete pain in the ass. She was also a thief. After being caught stealing $300,000, she initially declared Mr. Holland as a participating party. In the months before the trial, she spoke with any news outlet who would listen and ran his family name through manure. Before trial, she reversed her song, admitted to lying, and threw herself at the mercy of the court. That evening, Millicent was treated to a brilliant rant from her boss, using a number of clever and apt adjectives in front of the word bitch. Even then, his voice never rose above a dampened bellow. There was more agitation and venom in that one word than his entire 10-minute justified cursing. She was touched and tickled. "It's okay, Mr. Holland," she explained, working hard to keep a giggle of surprise and amusement under wraps. "I'm sure this is just a simple error." Mr. Holland would not be soothed.
Absolutely not. This is a travesty of the highest order. What is the name of this place of idiots? Pure incompetence. Of all the things to get wrong, I will have our lawyers go after this place for every reasonable dime. And then go for unreasonable, because that's what this is. So unreasonable.
She fought the entire time to convey a convincing air of concern. She wanted to drop the act and tell the animated boss that his concern, though moving, was unnecessary. She wanted to tell him that she didn't care if they ever found her mother's remains. She wanted to tell him that the first time she had seen her mother in 18 years was when this funeral home displayed her in her casket. She wouldn't. After a short back and forth, she managed to quiet the man from raining down legal fire and brimstone upon the place.
Well, the offer to sue the pants off of them still stands. But you go ahead and take the rest of the week off. I'll report this to Marie. Make sure you get paid for the days on us. And if you need more time, you let me know. Okay, take care.
With that, he disconnected. Mr. Holland, while not the most proficient in telephone etiquette, reminded Millicent of his capacity to be generous. The Tuesday afternoon just took a fantastic turn to the positive. She opened her Netflix app and began her playlist for the week.
"Here you are, dear."
The voice cut through her growing excitement of junk food and binge watching like a firefighter through a room full of smoke. The voice was one she'd heard earlier. Millicent broke away from her screen and met a dour face. The secretary looked exactly as she'd pictured in her head. Bun, glasses, an outfit that left all to the imagination, except ankles. Exactly, though not the eyes. Where the expectation was kind, round grandma eyes, this face had a small, flat, close-set pair. She reminded Millicent of a possum. The older woman flashed her own version of the sweet smile. Hers did not reach those eyes. Possums aside, her mind had not left the anticipation of the next several days of moving only to stave off atrophy. The woman's presence was a mystery. "Huh?" Tiny Eyes held up a styrofoam cup.
"I thought you would like some water while you waited."
Two thoughts simultaneously tracked in Millicent's head. First, now? I've been here 3 hours. The second, she had to choke down. A scream of absolutely not rang in her head, with reverberations humming like a struck bell. She almost voiced it. She didn't need to voice it. Her disgust rode its way across her face. The woman standing before her could read. Millicent tried to offer the sweet smile, but it was too late. "Thank you." The saccharin layered thick on the smile. She took the cup from the woman's outstretched hand, setting it on the table. Like saccharin, the phony sweetness did not satisfy the lady. Her little eyes narrowed further, and the acknowledgement was dry as plain toast. She turned, disappearing into the office. Millicent wanted to defend herself against the perceived snobbery. "Do you have any idea what they do here?" An open cup of water from a funeral home sounded as good of an idea as taking a sip from a pool of standing water in a parking lot. There was no possible way she would drink non-bottled water from a place where embalming happened. She eyed the cup with suspicions. There passed over her a cloud of dread. She couldn't explain it. The strong and sudden sense of unease she had towards it surprised and unsettled her, eating holes in her soul. Had she received it from any place else, she would have drank it with no second thought. The stark white cup and clear water should not have felt dangerous. She stopped questioning. She had not discounted her feelings her entire life. She would not start now. Looking towards the secretary's office, Millicent made sure the woman remained out of sight. From the waiting area, she had a partial view of a desk and a wall with a plaque for Employee of the Month dated 6 months ago. She wondered what one needed to do to get such recognition working in a funeral home. Perhaps not misplace people's ashes and have folks waiting for hours, she mumbled to herself. Satisfied of her cloaking in one smooth motion, Millicent grabbed the offending cup, rose, and poured the water into the open lid of the fish tank. The little cup of water would not harm what looked to be overgrown feeder goldfish. No garbage can visible, of course. She and the cup returned to their original locations. She delightedly resumed her playlist creation. The sound of sizzling had been going on for a while before it broke through her conscious mind. She looked first to the office, wondering what the woman could be doing. It was not coming from inside there. Her eyes landed on the cup. The cup, which only moments before had been in her hand, began to dissolve. Confusion wrapped its heavy arms around her and held tight. Her mind worked hard on some rationality. Gasoline melts styrofoam, her confused mind tried to help. No smell, unless... She looked to the fish tank. Nothing. The water remained clear, the glorified goldfish unaware of the phenomena happening at the table. Reality pierced through incredulity with the smell of burning wood. The table beneath the melted cup began to smoke. The hole where it sat grew, eating its way through the tabletop. She slid to the opposite end of the couch. Not much distance could be given between herself and the growing hole. She called out for help. The door to the secretary's office slammed with frame-rattling force. From behind the door, a scream. The sound chilled Millicent to her core. That was the sound of the certainty of terror and got her in motion. A few steps, bouncing sideways through the narrow space between the armchair and the table, she lost her balance, falling ballerina-like to the old carpet. Surprising herself at the quickness in her movements, she recovered and reached the door, somehow knowing it would not open. The knob turned smoothly. The door swung with no resistance. Her own scream bounced to her ears in the empty room. Empty. No desk. No Employee of the Month plaque. No secretary with tiny eyes. Tap, tap. She spun to the entrance to the office. Nothing. Only the dimly lit hall beyond the glass. Tapping again. She didn't want to find the source, only wanted to leave, but the sound was close. Tap, tap. Very close. Tap, tap. Just to the left of her, the fish tank. She looked. The water was still crystal clear. The feeders were gone. Mostly gone. Fluffy bits of orange flesh and scales floated around the new occupant. The octopus was the color of blood. It sat at the bottom of the tank, its thinking arms curled over one another. Still. Except one. One arm held up, curled around the head of a fish. The tapping noise created by a shard of the fish's spine. She transfixed, stuck between fear and fascination. She approached the tank. It stopped. The 9-brained creature sat still, like a rendering on canvas. Its bulbous head, covered in mottled skin, glistened oddly underwater. At the top of the skull, there was movement, a rolling just beneath the skin. Millicent moved closer, her face an inch from the tank. The skin shifted, then lifted. The eye that opened in the center of its head was not its own. It was human, brown like hers, and aware. The octopus hit the glass again, this time cracking it. She screamed. If you enjoy this content, don't be shy. Go ahead and like, share, and subscribe.